Hey everybody, it's Jenna. I'm here today to talk about a DC Studios announcement that I definitely wasn't expecting. A Mr. Miracle animated series. The show, which has already been greenlit and put into production by DC Studios, will be based on Tom King and Mitch Garrett's Eisner-winning 2017 maxi series of the same name. King, whose work on Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is inspiring the 2026 movie and is also executive producing the Lanterns HBO series, will serve as an executive producer and showrunner. Garrett's also created the key art for the series, which is being animated by Titmouse, the animation studio behind projects like The Legend of Vox Machina, Star Trek Lower Decks, and this sequence from WandaVision. The voice cast, as well as the network or streaming service it will end up on, are unknown at this time. The official description of the series teases the, quote, harrowing, hilarious, heart-wrenching journey of Scott Free and his wife Big Barda as they try to stop Scott's adoptive father Darkseid from wreaking havoc across the universe and across Scott's own mind. The series is one of the biggest cases yet of Jack Kirby's Fourth World, one of the biggest, most ambitious, and arguably most incredible corners of comic canon, making its way into another medium. To give you the simplest possible cliff notes, Fourth World chronicles a massive cosmic war between the idyllic New Genesis and the dystopia of Apocalypse, where Darkseid plots to control all of reality. You've definitely seen attempts at bringing its characters to life on screen, and both Scott and Barda have appeared throughout animation. A New Gods movie was previously in the works during the DCEU era, which would have been directed by Ava DuVernay and co-written by her and King, before the project was ultimately cancelled in 2021. Either way, we've ended up here, so let's break down what we might be able to expect. Scott Free was created by Kirby in 1971's Mr. Miracle #1 as a master escape artist who was trying to outrun his past as a new god. More specifically, Scott was born as the Prince of New Genesis, only to be traded to Apocalypse as a baby, with Darkseid's son Orion being traded to New Genesis in an effort to maintain diplomacy between the two worlds. Left to rot in an orphanage run by Granny Goodness, Scott grew up to become a passionate member of the anti-Darkseid resistance, as well as a capable escape artist who can get his way out of practically anything. He eventually fled to Earth, and after taking the mantle of Mr. Miracle following the death of human circus performer Thaddeus Brown, became a celebrity, a costume superhero, and a member of the Justice League International. In between fighting Darkseid and other threats from Apocalypse, he also developed a relationship with Big Barda, who was created by Kirby in 1971's Mr. Miracle #4. A fellow orphan raised in a cruel and loveless life by Granny Goodness, Barda is taught to be the leader of Apocalypse's squad of warriors, the Female Furies. She becomes radicalized against her upbringing after meeting and falling in love with Scott, and eventually joins him on Earth. Once there, she serves as a member of the Justice League and the Birds of Prey, including on their current roster. The inspiration behind Barda is multifaceted. According to Kirby's former assistant Mark Evanier, she was visually inspired by actress Lainey Kazan, particularly a 1970 photo shoot that she did for Playboy magazine. Quote, he thought she was a beautiful lady, and while Jack didn't necessarily prefer a large, formidable woman over any other, he did appreciate the beauty in that body type. It got him to thinking about concocting a superhero who looked like she could do the feats of strength that Wonder Woman or Supergirl did with more dainty physiques. He went on to add that, quote, in the case of Big Barda, the visual started with Lainey, but all the personality and style was one of the many ways that Jack viewed his spouse, Roz, especially the scenes where Barda would be fiercely protective of Scott. Scott and Barda are characters who I've hoped to see on screen for a while, and pockets of the internet definitely have as well. And I always had a feeling that any sort of adaptation of New Gods would put them at the emotional core. They both have such maximalist costumes and big personalities, as well as a relationship dynamic that has only gotten better with time and that is just delightful to experience. The fact that we're getting this specific animated series, though, is really interesting. Without getting into spoilers, the 2017 Mr. Miracle series really brings the Fourth World mythos to a modern human level, with a handful of scenes that really revel in the mundane and the relatable. It is also easily one of the most satisfying standalone stories about Fourth World, which is probably a big part of why it has been consistently collected in trades and hardcover editions since concluding in 2019, and why it is the basis for this animated series. But at the same time, the series has massive stakes and makes some very big swings, to the point of being described by King as canon adjacent to the main DC Comics universe. It is interesting that we don't know yet whether this series is DCU canon like Creature Commandos, or set in an Elseworlds like the already announced Starfire, My Adventures with Green Lantern, and DC Superpowers. The beauty of this fresh new universe is that DC Studios can make those decisions as they gradually build it out, a decision that is seemingly still being made with the dynamic duo animated movie starring Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, as James Gunn revealed earlier this year. I could see Mr. Miracle ultimately going either way. It could be an Elseworlds, so it could take its big swings unencumbered, or it could be DCU canon to introduce its characters as part of this fresh new universe. Either way, it would bring a story that's centered around families and relationships, all with a set of heroes who aren't starting at square one of their stories, which seems to be the approach that DC Studios is taking wherever possible. That being said, if it does end up being DCU canon, I really hope that it doesn't cloud anyone's expectations about whatever overarching plan DC Studios has, because I can already see some people turning up their nose to the idea of any franchise-wide big bad that isn't Darkseid. Granted, I feel like a lot of that comes from a combination of the Thanos comparisons, the fact that that he was promised but never properly brought to life in the previous universe, and just a lack of knowledge about the other cool big bads at DC's disposal. But nevertheless, the possibility of Mr. Miracle being DCU canon also has my gears turning in a couple of weird ways. One, the comic has a massive recurring gag of Scott wearing t-shirts with other superheroes' emblems on them. If we get a version of that in the show, I wouldn't be surprised if it's with some caveats. We already know from Creature Commando Season 1 that DC Studios doesn't want to commit to showing every character's costume before we see them actually debut.
Some of them are kind of an educated guess. I wouldn't take everything as, if you see certain characters, I'm not going to take that every single one of them is going to look like that in their physical incarnations down the road, but it's not far off.
So characters who might be a ways away, like Flash, Starman, and Adam Strange, might not get shirts this time around. 2, the potential of the show introducing Funky Flashman and a whole new crop of people discovering his history as a caricature of Kirby's complicated relationship with Stan Lee is going to be wild. 3, I desperately need a version of this scene in the comic's final issue, which includes cameos from members of DC editorial, as well as some of my personal favorite comedians and podcasters: Scott Aukerman, Adam Scott, Lauren Lapkus, Paul F. Tompkins, Paul Scheer, June Diane Raphael, and Jason Mantzoukas. It doesn't have to be exact, but it would still be so great. If this announcement in this video left you wanting to dive into New Gods more, I'm going to preach the entire point of my channel and tell you to go read some comics. The collected edition of Mr. Miracle is easy to track down, and you owe it to yourself to read Kirby's saga at least once in your life. I'll also recommend the wonderful Barda graphic novel that was released last year from Check Please creator Ngozi Ukasu, which retells bits of the Fourth World story from a teenage Barda's perspective. It's also getting a sequel centered around Orion in 2026. How do you feel about this Mr. Miracle news? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you haven't already done so. Merch is available at the link in the description. As always, you can find me on social media at Hey It's Jenna Lynn. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, go read some comics.